My name is Denay Jones. I'm here to tell my story of recovery. It is long and eventful and heartbreaking and exhilarating, and I'm ready to tell it. So that's why I'm here. I've been sober now for 2 years. It took me like over a decade to get here. It was hard. There was a lot of denial, a lot of blaming it on other people, a lot of tries and fails, for sure. It was definitely 10 years of just being completely oblivious to the fact that my addiction solely came from me. It was solely my choice to abuse alcohol. I started drinking when I was 15. My mom was an alcoholic. She got sober when I was about 6. Like, my mom going to treatment is such a blur. I just remember it was like a movie. Like, I was in the back seat of my grandmother's car and I was like waving and I could just see them taking her away. And I didn't really understand how important that moment was. But she did it. She went, she got sober. In her sobriety, she's become, a trailblazer. She works with nonprofits. She introduced President Obama when he came here. I mean, she tells her story all the time. And, that's something I definitely want to do. But when I started drinking, it was just fun. It was like party stuff, My mom always expected the most of me. I went to a private school. If I didn't get an A, there was a problem, so I always felt like I kind of had the weight of the world a little bit on my shoulders. I was pretty hard on myself if I didn't do everything exactly right every time. Drinking was like a way out of it. I mean, that's all I saw, right? Like, everybody just got a drink when they were stressed out or when they had a lot going on. It was just what you did to survive. So I didn't think anything different when I started. At this time, I was born in Michigan, but we moved to Ohio. My mom was a foreman for General Motors, so I kind of relate to like Army kids, right? We just moved around a lot. Every time she went to a new plant, we would move. So we lived in Michigan, Ohio, Alabama, and Texas. So we moved around a lot. And when we were in Ohio, we lived in like this farm town. There was just acres of land. We had like 3 acres. And it was very isolating, because there was no one or anyone for miles around. It was just me and her. And, it was just very isolating. And so when I did get a chance to get out and hang out with friends, I just wanted to take advantage of it as much as possible. I wanted to have as much fun as possible. And to me, getting obliterated, that was definitely it. By the time I was like 18, graduated high school, that's what I was known for. Go to Denay's house. She's going to have a party. There's going to be all kind of alcohol. I was always like super inventive with the stuff I made. I would, make all these drinks and, it wasn't just a keg. It was like a keg floating with, it was just the most. But I took pride in it, People would wake up I'd wake up with people passed out in my apartment. And I was so proud of that. I was like, oh man, I did great last night. Victory. Everybody is obliterated, and I carried that like a badge of honor. Like, if you want to have a good time, let me know. I got you. And I was so proud to be able to say, I can drink any man underneath the table. Try me, please. But at the end of the night, I was just nothing. I was absolutely nothing. I gave so much power away to people to tell me my worth. If I wasn't the most popular person in the room or the one everyone was looking for, I felt like I was doing something wrong because my worth was so tied up in how much people loved me and not how much I loved myself. But I didn't realize that for many years. Lived in Alabama for a while, and then we moved to Texas. So I moved to Texas when I was 21. Well, I was 20. And coming from a very small town in Alabama to Houston, Texas was a game changer in all of the wrong ways. I mean, I was even scared to drive on the freeways for the first 6 months. I had never experienced anything this big. There was like 5 lanes. That was nuts to me. But once I started getting my bearings, I started, getting to know people, and making a group of friends that, I really felt were good for me at that time. But again, like I said, I was 21, so my friends at the time were all younger than me. I was the one who was legal to buy alcohol, so that was my job. I bought all the alcohol, I went all to liquor stores, and I kept the party going as much as possible. But after a while, the partying caused a lot of problems. There was a day when I was, Sunday brunch. You go out, it was like football season, so we were gonna go watch the game. We went to brunch first. I always loved wine. I could finish a bottle of wine in one sitting. 7 days in Harris County. And that was the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I slept on the floor. There were no beds. They didn't have any more cots. They didn't care. They didn't care. I'd never experienced anything like that. And my bond was so high. We didn't have that type of money. And I just remember my lawyer reading to me the police report while I was like behind that glass. And I was so ashamed. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I didn't remember it, but I also couldn't believe it. And I had to call my mom. And there was so much disappointment in her voice when she answered the phone. It broke me. And my attorney told her, you have to sell everything. That's just replaceable. We got to get her out. I was suicidal. I remember I had a dress on that day, and I had like a tie. And they asked me, are you okay with this tie? Are you going to hurt yourself? And I said, yeah. If you leave me alone long enough, I will. So then I was put on suicide watch. That was terrible. And I remember when I got out, they let you out just like this back street. I think everybody, if you've ever been to jail, you know where that is in Harris County. It's just this little building. And my mom was parked outside, and I felt like a zombie, like walking to her car. I mean, I was so detached from reality. And I remember her telling me that she didn't even know who I was. Never seen me look like that. And she took me home. And as soon as I got home, I got in my car and I drove to the liquor store and I bought 2 bottles of wine. And I came right back home. And I remember I sat right in the middle of my living room, popped them open, and just drank them and then passed out. Because I knew what I had done had forever changed my life. And it was no one's fault but mine. And that now I was going to be on probation. I was going to be drug tested. Everything about my life was going to be monitored and watched. And so instead of thinking, okay, well, this is the time to probably get my shit together. Like, this is real. You have a felony. What are you doing? I didn't do that. Instead, I thought, okay, how can I get around this? And the best thing that came out of that was I was court ordered to go to therapy. And I met my first therapist. His name was Lucky. And he saved my life for sure. I'd never had somebody be so patient and kind with me, because I had completely now given up on myself. I had no value. I was a felon. I was a drunk. I wasn't working. I had no money, and any money I did have went to the state. No one would hire me. I there was nothing inside of me anymore. I just was existing. And for at least 3 months, I would go to therapy and not say one word. I would just sit there and look at him. And he'd just look at me. And he would say, we're just going to keep doing this until you're ready. And finally, one day I was ready. And that's when I learned about therapy and how powerful and helpful it is. What it means to have support, to have someone that says, it's okay, it's all right, it's totally fine. We're going to figure it out together, me and you. We're going to figure it out. And he did that for me. He was patient and he was kind. He fed me when I didn't have money. He took the time to really see who I was. And when I would talk down to myself, he would tell me that that's not who I was. And that was the first real step of change, I believe, that happened in my life. But I just couldn't fight the addiction. I couldn't stop. And then I lost a job. It was a really good job. I've always worked in mental health. I've always worked in psychiatry. I love helping people. I love learning about the mind. I decided to go back to school when I got out. I wanted to be a counselor. And while I was in school, it was like my rehab, right? I was just learning so much about the brain and why we do the things we do in addiction. And I was going to a psychiatrist, trying to get my mental health together. And the psychiatrist told me I was bipolar. And I don't know why that hit me so hard. It was kind of like, I work in this field for a living and I can't even recognize bipolar symptoms in myself. I do assessments. What's going on? And I felt like I didn't know myself. I was like, I don't know anything about me because I was just listening to what everyone was telling me about me. And if I didn't know me, why am I here? So I tried to drown myself in the pool in my apartment complex. I just walked right in there and just sat there at the bottom. But I called my mom before I did it, which is, we know is a sign that we didn't really want it to happen. And thank God I did, because she came immediately and she dragged me out. And I just remember screaming at her, I need help. I need help. And that was the first time that I was put into like a mental health facility. And I'll never forget, when I went to the hospital, after trying to commit suicide, I was telling the nurse, I need to go into recovery. I need treatment. I need something. And she said, well, your insurance isn't that good. There's not going to be many places that are going to be able to have you. And I was like, I don't fucking care. Someone has to help me. Someone has to help me. I'm not leaving. And I spent 2 weeks, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was around other people that went through what I went through, other women. And that was a feeling I never had. I never was around other supportive people who felt what I felt or who knew what I was going through. And they were right in front of me and they were patting me on the back and telling me that I could do it. And I felt like $1,000,000. I was like, oh, I've got this now. I'm good. I was sober for maybe 6 months after that. I was healthy. I was working out. I was exercising. I was getting all my classes. There was this joy that came back to my life. I was just so happy to still be here. I was so blessed to still be alive. I was so happy. And then it's like depression, it comes in waves. Some minutes you're way up and then you'll be back down. And I don't know if it was just life in general, because with substance abuse, every day is not guaranteed, right? We're just trying to make it that next 24. And something, just a mix of life and jobs, I just said, fuck it. I need a drink. What's the worst? I don't have to tell anybody. This is when I got through like I'll keep it a secret, you know? No one has to know. This is just me and my addiction. I can die or do it however I want to do it. It's mine. It's my life. I don't give a fuck what they think. And I'm not going to tell them either. And so that's when I started hiding alcohol and thinking that no one knew, which I knew I was showing up smelling horrible, eyes glazed over, just denying it, embarrassing myself. I mean, I was pretty low at that point because I had experienced sobriety. I knew how great it was, but I realized I couldn't get to it, not on my own. I would have to sit on my hands. I would try to not leave and go drink. I didn't have a car at this time, so I would just walk. I would just get up and walk straight to the liquor store, work to the gas station, anywhere I could. And so I remember having to like literally sit on my hands and just say, God, please, 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 please. It felt like this overwhelming like force calling and like pulling at me, like just pulling at me, like grabbing me and just slowly pulling me closer. And it was unbearable. It was so unbearable. And I didn't have the words to explain it to anyone. And when I would try to ask for help, it felt like somebody had their hand over my mouth and was like covering it. And I was trying to scream through and say, please. But I just couldn't. I couldn't get the words out. I just couldn't. And these were really dark, dark times. So I isolated myself. I didn't talk to anyone for like a year. I just would go to work and come home and drink. That's all I did. That's it. That's where everything went. Something about addiction that makes us think that every worst thing about us is true. And no one can tell you differently. I don't know how else to explain that, but to say it just like that. No one can tell me that I'm better than what I am because this is all I have. I've never known anything more. And I was sitting there like, what are you doing? Why are you in jail again? Is this where you want to be? Is this what you want? Is this all you think that you can do? Are you even going to try? You haven't fought for yourself yet. You fought for what people believe you are. You fought for what people say you are. You let society tell you that just because you went to jail, just because you have an addiction, that you mean nothing. I have value. And I realized that. And I fought for myself this time. And I really made a conscious effort to pay attention to my health, do things that, made me feel better, work out, go to therapy, do some support groups, whatever I needed to do. And then COVID hit. That was 2 years ago and some change. And it was just like this immediate click of, are you going to continue to hurt everyone that loves you? Are you going to continue to put the people that stand up for you through pain? Why? Why are you doing this to them? Why are you doing it to yourself? I mean, it was literally that quick, that easy. It was done. It was dead. Dead. And it was the easiest this time. And I don't know if it's because, I've been to school now, so I understand the behaviors, the attachment. I understand it all the science behind it. But it was more of the spiritual aspect that came in this time. I realized that I was worthy of love. I am worthy of great things. Like, the things that I can do when I'm sober blow my fucking mind. I mean, when I really just focus on myself and growth and whatever I want to do. That was the best part of sobriety. Like, I can do anything. I can try playing the guitar. I can go out and learn salsa dancing. I can go to the park and lay out and read a book. I can go bike riding. I couldn't do any of this shit because I was stuck to a bottle all day. I wanted to do it, but I never even thought it was possible because I'm gonna be too drunk to do it. Or my brain wouldn't even let me formulate that as an option. And once I realized that I could get sober on my own terms, I didn't have to do it the way AA taught me. I didn't have to do it the way my sponsor taught me. I could do it whatever way works best for me. And that's what I did. I made my own routines. I created my own support group.